Welcome to a Tech Tuesday video that I've been wanting to make for a little while to help some people out that have been having the same issue that I had with my R33, which was a constant 15 to 30 second clicking noise in the trunk. So ever since I got the car, I heard the clicking noise in the trunk. I thought it was normal. I thought it was just part of the ATTESA system functioning properly. But until my battery took a shit, I realized that it is in fact not supposed to be clicking every 15 to 30 seconds. So when the battery decided to go out, or have a dead cell or whatever happened, every time the ATTESA relay clicked, the car would want to die. The lights in the dash would flicker, and there was just like a couple other issues, and I noticed that every time I heard that relay click, that's when the problem happened. So I went ahead and replaced the battery, and then proceeded to do some diagnosing and trying to do some research on the ATTESA system on this car. A lot of the research came up empty because most of the information is from Australian forums that are 14 years old, that people just talked about the issues, asked for input, and no one ever responded again. There was no resolution or explanation as to what was going on. So I was ordering some parts from Doug and Eric at UP Garage in Washington. Great guys. They're very helpful with getting me on track as to start the diagnosing process with the ATTESA system. So the first thing I checked was to see if there were any faults on the ATTESA computer. There were not. The only indication was the relay clicking. And going through manuals and wiring diagrams, I did some electrical checks. The first thing I did was check the relay itself. I checked the input voltage going to the relay and the output voltage coming from the relay. The readings were a little bit wonky, so I figured, what the heck? The relay was like $30 some. I'll replace the relay and see if that takes care of the issue. Long story short, the relay came. It did in fact not fix the issue. After replacing the relay with a known good relay, I moved on to the pump. I wanted to see if the pump was drawing too much power, if it was not cycling the way it should. But the tests on the pump were that it was functioning properly. So what happens in these cars, I didn't know. It took some figuring out. But basically what happens is when you key on the ignition, you'll hear the ATTESA pump prime. It's going to sound like a whining motor noise, and then it should stop. Once the system is primed, it should stay primed until the ATTESA system actually gets used or is engaged. On this car, like I said, the relay was constantly clicking. And after the research, I came to the conclusion that the accumulator was bad. This is the accumulator. It is a nitrogen-filled canister that costs like $350. It's expensive, but if you have an ATTESA relay clicking, long story short, this is going to fix your issue. So what the accumulator does is when the system comes up to pressure, it acts as a shock absorber. It's a nitrogen-filled canister that basically absorbs small pressure differences in the system. So if the pressure drops and the accumulator isn't doing what it's supposed to, like in this case, the pressure switch is going to read not enough pressure, tell the ATTESA computer, the relay is going to kick on, pump's going to kick on, bring the system pressure to where it's supposed to be, kick the system back off. Well, what's happening with a bad accumulator is the system will come up to correct pressure, and then small variances will happen. The accumulator will not be able to compensate for those. So that's what triggers the constant cycling of the relay. Overall, it was not a bad job to replace the accumulator. Obviously, the relay location is in the trunk. It's easy to access. We'll come underneath the car and kind of give you a quick 10 words or less version of how to replace this. All right, obviously, this is the location of your ATTESA components on an R33. This tray comes off. All I was able to do was remove this guard and then get an oil filter wrench on the old accumulator, and I was able to just unscrew it like it was an oil filter and then thread the new one back on. It was really straightforward. So the next step in the process to getting this fixed was to bleed the system. Now there's a great video on YouTube by Nismology. I'll link the video in the description below. He explains how to bleed the ATTESA system on an R33 V-Spec model. This is a non-V-Spec, so there's obviously going to be a few differences. The two main differences, or the only differences really that I can think of, are the bleed port for the ATTESA system on the rear diff and also the plug underneath the dash that allows you to bleed the system by yourself. So I'll bring you into under the dash here. All right, as you can see, there's a small white electrical connector right here. On the V-Spec models, there's a brown plug and a white plug. On the V-Spec, you're going to want to disconnect the brown plug. What that does is when your ignition is keyed on, it sends the power to the ATTESA pump to constantly run it. So the system is constantly trying to build pressure, allowing you to bleed it. On the non-V-Spec models like I have here, it's the white plug. You disconnect the white plug, turn the ignition key on, and it's going to run the ATTESA pump, allowing you to get underneath the car and bleed the system by yourself. It makes the process a lot easier. It is a lot easier with two people, but I was able to do it by myself, just kind of going back and forth between the steering wheel side and then underneath bleeding the car. Another one of the pieces of information I struggled to find was what fluid to run in the ATTESA system. Service manuals call for Nissan Matic D transmission fluid. My Nissan dealer in town did not have any. So what I was able to do was go online and find an older article by D Sport magazine that had a lot of good information about the ATTESA system and what fluids to run. They actually provided a test with multiple different fluids, talking about their viscosities, the pressure that they create in the system, and they give a really good breakdown of each fluid and what they do. I was actually able to find one of the fluids that was kind of like a mid-range that didn't have too much of a high pressure in the system, because with the ATTESA system, obviously, if you have a fluid that causes more pressure, it's going to make the ATTESA system engage faster, naturally. So I went with like a mid-range Idemitsu ATF. They had it at the local O'Reilly because I was trying to get this job done. I was trying to go to a Cars and Coffee. Not saying I was rushing the job, but I wanted to get it done in a timely fashion. I'll link the article down below in the description so you guys could take a look at it. Again, very helpful, good information, even though it's from like 2014. So we got the ATTESA system fixed, bled, great. We're ready to take it for a rip. Went out, first drive, blew the 30-year-old radiator out of this thing. So needless to say, there's going to be another video here coming pretty soon where I'm going to talk about replacing the radiator, because right now she's back on jack stands, needs a radiator. Still miss the Cars and Coffee because I didn't want her to overheat, but we got some other things going on with the car as well besides the radiator. So make sure you come back, check out the next future videos so you can see what's going on with the GT-R. Appreciate you guys for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.